I'm not sure where to put this prop. But my name is Ruth Hardy, and I'm the executive director of an organization called Emerge Vermont. Emerge Vermont recruits, trains, and inspires Democratic women to run for office. And I'm here to talk to you about why women should run for office and why you should vote for them. It seems a timely month to be talking about women in public office, yeah? I'm sure you're all following the presidential election. Gender seems to be inextricably linked to electoral politics these days. Here in Vermont, we see it on our smaller, more well-behaved stage as a top executive race with Sue Minter running for governor, and campaigning on so-called women's issues, such as domestic violence prevention and paid family leave. With Hillary on the national scene and Sue on the Vermont one, it seems that women could maybe be taking over. But nationwide, women hold fewer than 1/4 of the more than 500,000 elected positions in this country. In many regions or elected bodies, women hold far fewer than that proportion. And women of color, their proportional representation is even worse than for us white women. The vast majority of elected officials in our country are white men. Women are not taking over. What about Vermont? It turns out that school boards are the only elected positions in Vermont where we have statewide gender parity. Although it's not equally distributed, some counties lag far behind. My own county, Addison County, where I serve on a school board, has not yet reached gender parity for our school board members. Our other local boards, namely city councils, boards of aldermen, and select boards, do far worse with gender parity. As of 2015, only about 21% of our local select board members were women. And only one of Vermont's 8 mayors is a woman. At the state legislative level, Vermont does a lot better, actually. Over 40% of our state legislators are women. And that makes us the second highest percentage in the country, behind Colorado. Although our state house does a lot better than our Senate. Our Senate is only about 30% women at this point. Although I think a couple people in the room might change that. Statewide elections prove to be particularly challenging for women in Vermont. Currently, only one of our statewide elected officials is a woman. Vermont is actually only one of 3 states nationwide to have never sent a woman to Congress. Delaware is on the brink of electing a woman to the United States House of Representatives. So that will leave only us and Mississippi. All of this leads to Vermont ranking 41st out of the 50 states in gender parity among our elected officials, according to the Nonpartisan Representation 2020. Gender parity among elected officials in the United States will not be achieved anytime soon. In fact, we're stagnating, while other countries are coming closer to gender parity. In 1993, Vermont ranked 7th among the 50 states. And in 1997, the United States ranked 52nd worldwide. Today, Vermont ranks 41st in a country that ranks 97th worldwide. The 2016 election clearly has high stakes for gender parity among elected officials. Nationally, we could elect our first woman president of the United States. But we're unlikely to make much headway in Congress, where fewer than 20% of members are women, and the pace of change is slow. It will take another 100 years to reach gender parity in our United States Congress at the pace we're going now. In Vermont, we could elect Sue Minter as our second woman governor, exactly 30 years after we are elected our first and only woman governor. In addition, we could have some important gains in our state legislature, especially in the Senate. And several women have announced bids for legislative leadership positions. So come January, we could have a woman Speaker of the House, a woman Senate Pro Tem, and a woman governor. And these gains would certainly raise Vermont's ranks among the states in gender parity. So perhaps we could be the middle of the pack in a country that's at the bottom of the pile. But why are there so few women in elected office? Despite high-profile candidates like Hillary and Sue, the bottom line is not enough women are running. And why don't women run for office? Well, it turns out there are actually a number of reasons why women don't run for office. Women, we don't think we're qualified enough. A survey of identically qualified men and women found that 22% of women thought they were highly qualified to run, whereas 35% of the men thought they were qualified. And the survey found also that women didn't think they were confident or competitive or thick-skinned enough to run for office. All traits that seem to be important for running for office, right? As Emerge Vermont founder Madeline Kunin says, men wake up in the morning and say, I think I'll run for Senate. Women, we don't do that. Women have less political ambition than men. And the ambition that women do have for politics is shrinking, while men, their political ambition is staying about the same. Women are less likely to be asked to run. Men are asked by everybody, family members, party officials, elected officials, activists, friends, their spouses. Women just aren't asked to run. And when they are, on average, women need to be asked 7 times to run before they will run. Women need to make the decision to run, and it takes longer for them to make the decision. They need to get their ducks in a row. And those ducks are often childcare, elder care, finances, and professional responsibilities, and housework. Women still do more of the child care giving, and they do more of the housework. They still make less money, and they still have less stable employment. Most women need time to work these things out before they can run for office. Turns out that actually our partisan system may be another reason why women aren't doing as well with gender parity in office. Over the past 25 years, nearly all the gains for women in elected office have been for Democratic women. And while Republicans have made gains up and down the ballot, the number of Republican women in elected office has remained identical. Incumbency is another reason why it's hard for women to break into politics. Most elected officials run for re-election, and most incumbents win. High incumbency win rates, for example, mean that every cycle, 86% of our congressional seats are already taken. People are staying in office longer, and the people in office are men. Women who do run are often the victim of a double standard held by the media and by voters. Women must be likable and strong to be elected. And likable women are often not seen as strong, and strong women are often not very likable. Does that sound familiar? All of these factors have led to a lack of role models for women who may actually want to run. As Sue Minter says, you gotta see it to be it. And when women and girls look at elected officials, they see white men. It turns out actually that in many important ways, women are actually better legislators, better leaders, and better policymakers. Women govern differently. Overall, women tend to be more collaborative leaders than men, and they get more done They work across the aisles and across the tables to create policy, sponsoring and co-sponsoring more legislation than men. During government shutdowns, women in Congress are often the only ones who show up, try to create change, find solutions, and get our government working again. Women leaders are usually better listeners. Women are socialized to listen. So they listen to their constituents, they listen to their colleagues, they find out what their needs are, and they act on those needs through policy making. Women diversify almost every public decision-making body, and diverse groups make better decisions. Do you want your company to make more money? And do you want your government to make more policy and more progress? In both cases, get more women at the table. And don't just get one woman at the table. Get enough women to have a critical mass so those women can amplify each other's voices and get more done. Women lead with compassion, and they focus on issues that are often ignored by men or overlooked by men, like women's health care and child care, workplace equity, economic inequality, community and personal safety, youth and elder issues, education, family leave, and support. Women bring different life experiences to the table, and by doing so, they broaden policy discussions and policy outcomes. Women in office are better for our daughters. It turns out that when there are more women in public leadership positions, parents actually have higher aspirations for their daughters. And girls have higher aspirations for themselves. When there are more women in office, society thinks more highly of women, and we think more highly of ourselves. More women in elected office is better for government, it's better for society, and it's better for women and girls. Yet women face numerous personal and structural barriers, and therefore just aren't running. So what are we, the leaders of Vermont, going to do about this? In other countries, there's been a jolt to their system to create more women in office. Some countries have legislated changes that require gender equity in public officials. Some countries have required their political parties to have quotas for the number of women who are candidates. Some countries have a parliamentary system or choice voting that requires choice rate voting that is actually more beneficial to women. And sadly, some countries have had so much war and genocide that the only leaders left are women. So it's not likely that these things, God willing in some cases, will happen in the United States. So what jolts can we commit to? So are you a woman? If you're a woman, run for office. This is me asking you. Talk to me about Emerge Vermont and how we can help you prepare. Are you a man? Don't equate gender equality with male marginalization. You have had your turn at blanket electoral authority. Now, make room for women. Work for women to gain parity, equality, and a seat at every single table that you have dominated for centuries. Ask smart, passionate women you know to run for office. I bet you all know a lot of them. Ask them 7 times. Support women who are running for office with your money, your time, your encouragement, and your vote. And if you're a man, do some laundry. Demand accountability from your party, from your elected officials, from the government, and from the media. How is it that we have gotten to the political discourse that we've had this election season? We've gotten here because of a lack of accountability in all of those areas. And don't boo, vote. If anyone in this room is thinking of sitting out this election or voting for a protest candidate, I'm sorry, just don't do it. There is far too much at stake. And if you do it, I'm going to sick Samantha Bee on you, and your life will never be the same. So, my last one is, if you're going to run, run like a girl.